Okay, let's get started.
All right, good morning and happy holidays. That is actually the very first time I've said that. Happy holidays, and it actually felt really good. I highly recommend that you try it. My name is Amy Lillard, and I am the Executive Director of Washington FilmWorks and WhipSmart. I'm super excited about today's panel. I was just chatting with our guests before hopping on to chat with you, and they are a spirited bunch, so get ready for that. As you likely know, most of our webinars have been focused behind the scenes so far. And just based on what we have been hearing from the community is you wanted to know about, how to work with talent and what to do about their safety and how to work with casting directors. And so, casting directors and talent agents. And so that is what we are here to do today. So we're going to cover a whole bunch of topics, everything from virtual auditions to safety on set. Before we get started, I always like to start with a couple of reminders for the industry. First and foremost, I just want to remind you that we have a ton of resources on Washington FilmWorks website to help you go back to work safely. We, of course, have the mandatory guidelines that were approved by the governor and the Department of Health. Those are up there, of course. But then also there's a wealth of other resources, everything from safety training information to how to access PPE, the required signage you need on set, all of those things. So we've recently added on our website in that section a recent update section. So when you go onto the page, you can see what's new. A couple of breaking news items that you should be aware of that happened just this week is Washington State adopted the new CDC guidelines for quarantining. And that talks about how and when you need to quarantine. It's pretty detailed, so I'm going to encourage you to check it out on your own when you have time. And again, it's highlighted in that recent update section of our website. And then in addition, in the breaking news section, the Association of Independent Commercial Producers, also known as the AICP, just published the commercial and corporate agreement that they negotiated with the talent unions. And so this agreement is considered industry standard practice for that format. So if you are working in commercials or corporate production, we encourage you to check that out. That is on our website as well. Everything we put on the website is coming from this community. So if there's something that you're looking for that's not up there, or you think that we're missing something, just email us and we can find it and put it up there. So our email address, or the best way to reach us, is info@washingtonfilmworks.org. So I thought it would be wise, since we're going to talk about talent today, to talk about the specific guidelines that are in the required Washington safety protocols around talent. And there are several of them. So I thought this would be good table setting before we started our conversation. So the first requirement in the Washington safety guidelines is that talent can take their masks off only for the time that they are speaking. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that everyone must remain 6 feet apart at all times. The caveat to that is talent can be closer than 6 feet if there's a physical barrier between them. So think plexiglass, for example, or all talent is masked except for the one performer that is speaking on camera. So those are the guidelines. There's a couple of questions that keep popping up at the office that I also wanted to address. One is a very popular question right now is, are there exceptions for talent that live together? So whether that's husband and wife or just roommates, you guys are both actors, can you be in a set together unmasked? And the answer is no. Well, you can be unmasked if you've got a plexiglass behind, some kind of barrier between you. But the short answer is, if you are, residents together, you may not. You have to follow the safety guidelines that I just spoke about. The other thing that we're getting quite a bit of questions about are testing requirements. Washington State specifically does not have testing requirements for talent or crew for that matter. However, SAG-AFTRA definitely has testing requirements. If you're interested in knowing what those testing requirements are, those agreements, those production agreements are up on our website. So that is a very good place to start. I think just knowing what's required in Washington State, but I would very much like to invite all of our panelists to join me right now so that we can get them introduced and get on to the conversation. So guys, if you could please turn your cameras back on. Great. Like I said, I had a chance to chat with these folks right before I hopped on, and they are a lively group. So I would love to start just by inviting each of you to introduce yourself just very briefly. And I will start with Bonni.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Bonni
Hi.
Dichone. I am an actor with MAM in the Pacific Northwest and other agencies in the Southwest and Southeast regions.
Great, thank you. How about you, Lowell?
My name is Lowell, and I am an actor who is with Big Fish Northwest.
Wonderful. Jodi.
Hi, I'm Jodi Rothfield, and I am a casting director with Jodi Rothfield Casting CSA.
Excellent. And Anne.
Hi, I'm Anne Mitchell. I am a talent agent and the owner of MAM.
Lovely. What I love about this panel is that everyone has been working in the time of COVID and all from different perspectives. So, we've got a talent agent with Anne, we've got a casting director with Jodi, and then of course we have our two talent on camera. So I think it would be nice to, if each of you could share a little bit about what you have been working on or how much you've been working, during this time of the pandemic. What types of projects seem to be happening right now?
Well, it's always a tricky question because when you ask an actor, are you working a lot? It's never enough, especially during COVID, it seems. So I've been fortunate in that I've worked pretty steadily, I guess, doing commercials, independent film, a guest starring role in Los Angeles, my first ever, and some training films. So that's been keeping me pretty busy.
It's nice to see, work, the fact that we're working at all. So I appreciate that, that comment, Lowell. What about you, Bonni?
About the same. It's been a little bit slower here in the inland area, but I've done a commercial, some industrial work, a few independent projects, and lots of training. There's lots of opportunity right now to train virtually with different people that you wouldn't otherwise be able to train with. So that's been awesome.
Oh, that's great. Jodi.
So things stopped dead in the middle of March, and they came back on big time in July. And so we've been steadily working quite a bit, actually, mostly on commercials, very few training films, I'd say commercials, until about a week ago. And now things are starting to drift off. I guess they have everything in the can already that they need for the holidays. But it's been good since July, but mostly commercials, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. So maybe just that lull, going into the winter season that generally happens.
As that happens every year, it's different. It used to be that it was seasonal, but for many years now, there's really no rhyme or reason for when we're busy and when we're not.
Oh, I just love having this historical perspective. So thanks for that. Hey, Anne, what about you?
Lots of PSAs, industrials, commercial work, indie film work, as well as voiceover, heavy voiceover time.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense, right?
And renewals. We love renewals.
Excellent. All right, so I want to ask you and Jodi, from the casting agency side and the talent side, agency side, how has the process changed for you during this time?
Well, on the casting end, the first round is always self-tapes now. I've only had a few where the client has wanted me to do a Zoom original casting. And then usually it's self-tapes for the first round and then Zoom callbacks. But I think that more and more, we're going to be requested, if this goes on as long as I think it might, to do Zoom first calls, because self-tapes it's tough. It's tough for my clients to really see what they're getting. And I'm not there to direct. So I'm given, I give out a sheet and it's so broad. I try to be specific, but I can understand how actors can't really get a hold of what I'm asking them to do. So I think that just the change it'll be Zoom all the way along.
So Jodi, so right now people are just taping themselves alone. Is that what's happening?
Right. And then they submit that to me and I look it over. Sometimes some agents look through their submissions of the self-tapes of their folks before they submit them to me. Then I have to go through them to make sure there's sound. You'd be surprised how many come without sound, that we can see them. You'd be surprised how many times we can't see them, and that they've slated so that I can, I can make sure that they have all their listings from my casting networks, which is the app we use. So it's a process, and it's actually much more time consuming than me having a day of sessions with actors coming in person, which I prefer. And I think the actors actually prefer it, even though it's more convenient for them to be producing their own self-tapes and not have to, physically be someplace. But it takes away a lot of the help that you get from a casting director who wants you to shine, because if you look good, I look good, and it's all about me, and that's good for you. So I can't do that when I do have people do self-tapes. I don't have to follow everything.
So, that leads to, having the Zoom interface would then allow you to interact and maybe pull some things and put actors in their best light.
In terms of the performance. And I can also say, hey, you need to put up another light, or we can't see you properly, or we're not hearing you. All sorts of things come up. So I'm there to make sure that what the client ends up seeing is something that's helpful for the actor to be considered. Because of course I'm set up normally.
Yes. We are going to talk a little bit more in depth about auditioning and that process. So I'm going to pause there on that. But Anne, do you want to jump in on that conversation about how things have changed from the talent agency side right now?
Lots of self-tapes, we are getting Zoom first round auditions. We're starting to see that sort of shift over. And every casting director sort of has their own set of rules, which is great. We just need talent to read them. And so a lot of my job has become enforcing instructions, which is okay. Learning that, and then just learning some grace when dealing with the talent. I had a talent that we were all trying to reach for an audition the other day and could not reach her. And she was watching her daughter's trigonometry classes so that she could tutor her through that. And so we all kind of have to learn that community responsibility aspect as well, where I think I text her way too many times because I was trying to reach her, but just finding some grace in our new normal.
Oh, I just love that idea of grace, right? Everyone is feeling and interacting and, differently in this time. So that's a great mantra, I think, for us all to think about from, production to talent to everyone. So I appreciate that. I would love to address the next question to all of our panelists, because I'm sure you all have wonderful opinions about it, which is directly about auditioning. I want to start with talent, on-camera talent. What are the challenges that you are finding inherently right now in auditioning?
So for me, it's, again, just to reiterate, that I'm not there to coach them. To refine it. My job isn't to give them their performance, but to tweak it. And I'm not there to do that. And that's unfair, because whatever you writing is not as clear as somebody saying it and standing there with you. The nuances are gone. And my clients also mentioned that the nuances are gone. It's not the same as being in a room. So it's totally changed the dynamic of the casting end, where I'm still hired to find the talent, choose the talent, and give them direction, which is coming from my client, but I'm not in the room with them. Again, everything for me personally, is being in the room with the actor.
And
I'm sorry,
I was just going to say, jumping off from what Jodi said, I mean, the upside is you no longer freak out wondering what bus to catch to get down to the casting office, or where can you find parking, and will you get there in time, blah, blah, blah. But going on what Jodi said, there's that little voice in the back of your head, like, is this what they want? Should I try it this way? Do I do it this way? So yeah, there's that nagging sense. That is the bugaboo.
I think that auditioning in general, there's always a different technique to auditioning than there is being on set and or being on stage and things like that. And now with all self-tapes, there's like an added technical level that you kind of have to make sure that you nail. Do you have a mic that works? Do you have lighting? Is your backdrop set up correctly? Do you have a reader? Are you going to have to figure out how to do a Facebook Live with a reader because you have to use Zoom for the audition? And so there's all these different components that you have to piece together. It's nicer with self-tape because you have the time then to figure all that out. Sometimes the turnaround's quick. And that's also been an issue, you know, if they're like, if it comes across quickly and you have to get that self-tape done, do you have time to find a babysitter, get the thing, you know, in a quick amount of time, and make sure all the technical aspects are right, and your eye line is different, and you don't have the energy in the room, and your husband wasn't trained to help you read, you know, there's just a lot of different kind of aspects that
unfair because you're responsible now for the setup, which is really,
right.
you know, that's my job usually, is to make sure the studio has good lighting and sound and whatever other nonsense needs to be present. That's a lot for actors, I think. So I appreciate that you have to deal with this now.
So
but it's another skill set too.
It is.
So we're learning.
Yeah.
This.
And there's a lot of help out there too for this kind of thing as well. So,
well, so let's talk about that. Like, you know, we're in this situation, like Jodi said, we'll probably be in this situation for a bit longer. What tips do you have? What are the best practices that talent should be thinking about as they audition?
So from my end, because I'm the one who gets the tapes before they're sent on to the client, from my end, it's I have to see you, I have to hear you. And also just identifying yourself, not just by slating, which people tend not to do on self-tapes, I don't know why, but labeling the tapes. I mean, it's very simple stuff. I need to know who you are. I know who you are because I asked for you, but I have to find you among the 177. I'm seeing more people now than I normally would originally, because so many people confirm and then don't send a tape, and then people don't confirm and do send a tape, so I've already eliminated them. So there's a lot of juggling that I didn't have to do before because you're there in the room with me. I'm signing you in, I know who you are. So it's just being really diligent. Don't send anything. Check your work before you send it. How about that? Just so I can cut myself off here. Just check your work, make sure you have sound, make sure we can see you, make sure we can identify you. That would be great.
That's good advice. What other tips would you guys recommend?
There are a lot of free. Oh, go ahead, Bonni.
Nope, that was Anne.
Or Anne, sorry, Anne, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Just treating an audition as an audition. Even though you were home, finding a professional space to do it in, finding good lighting. There are ways that you can trick out your lamps in your space to give you better lighting, but treating it as an actual professional audition, getting dressed, doing your face if you need to do your face. I've seen self-tapes that come across with people's dirty laundry in the back. No.
I see a lot of those.
I was going to ask, you say professional space, and while I think I know what that means, what does that mean to you? What does that mean exactly?
It's just
no dirty laundry,
putting yourself together in the same way that you would if you were walking into the room. This is not just because you're home and you're in quarantine doesn't mean that if the character wouldn't be in pajamas, it's not the time to wear your pajamas. And that sounds like a really basic thing, but I feel like I've been lecturing that on a weekly basis.
Yes, me too. I get that. Yeah.
And I was going to say, this is the time when I know it's tempting for a lot of actors to say, woe is me, there's no work, we're in a second quarantine. But this is the time to pay attention to casting networks. They have free webinars. Backstage, they have free webinars. You learn really great tips about lights that you can find, you know, like this, or techniques you can use, or how to dress up a plain white wall to make your audition stand out. Even an exterior microphone, the power of an exterior microphone. So this is our time to learn.
Yeah, the microphone, boy, that's a big one.
Bonni, do you have any thoughts on this? Additional thoughts about tips, or that you're for talent when they're auditioning?
I mean, I would echo what Lowell just said. There are so many resources right now in the industry. There are so many people who are giving things for free that normally in other circumstances we wouldn't have access to. There's YouTube tutorials. There's tons of stuff on Instagram. Casting directors across the country are doing all of these live feed kind of tip ideas and things like that. And then the basics, again, the technique. This is a giant piece of paper I've got behind me that wasn't very expensive, and that works because I don't have a bare wall, but I hung a piece of paper. You know, I've got a cheap ring light here, and you can make your space. It is an investment, and I realize this isn't a time of a lot of money for people, but if you just spend even 25, 30 bucks, you can get a professional setup to make this work in this time. And you know, a lot of people are saying, and I think it's true, self-tapes aren't going anywhere. Zoom auditions aren't going anywhere. Even after COVID, if there's a vaccine or whatever ends up happening with all of that, we're still going to be self-taping. And so it's something as actors, we need to take responsibility for and just figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
I also appreciate this comment that not only have to be great actors, they have to be technicians, right? So you've got to own both parts of that. And
it's part of the craft. Yeah,
it is now, isn't it? Right.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm the consummate optimist. Is there anything better because of the better about virtual? Is there any half full at all, or you're seeing more people, Jodi, is what I heard? That's a half full, right?
I am, and I mean, it is much more comfortable for actors, maybe like Lowell said, not to have to get to a certain space and meet a certain time. You have a time frame you have to deliver your tape in. But other than that, I can see that, but I'm seeing the trepidation of the actors of, you know, is this good? Is this, you know, what am I doing? You know, is this what you wanted? And can you see me? I mean, I'm seeing a lot of that now, but I think as time moves on and people are becoming more comfortable with the setup, I think it could be actually a pretty decent setup. And as I said, I believe, and this is just me, what do I know? I think we're going to start seeing a lot more Zoom first calls so that the self-tape situation will go away. I mean, it takes much more time to do a Zoom than to, you know, gather all the tapes. I can see less people that way. I mean, so if I could normally see 100 people in a day if they speak, now I'll only be able to see 60 because of the technical stuff, you know. But having said that, that would be a great way for this to move in that direction, to have a Zoom call.
Why aren't they, if all those things are true, right? You're in a space with the actor, you have an opportunity to direct and to pull. Why aren't we doing it now? Are the clients resistant?
Much more time consuming the actual day. Like I said, I can see up to 100 people sometimes in a day, depending upon what I need to have them do action-wise or verbally. I can't with Zoom because until the actor gets the horizontal or the vertical or the sound, so many adjustments just in the machinations of it. Mm-hmm. So I can see fewer people. And if they don't have the budget, where they can't give me 2 days to see 6 roles, you know, 40 people per role, then I have to make do. And that means that I have to be much more selective. And, you know, there's a lot of wonderful talent here. I hate to have to be more selective. I feel like I'm already pretty selective with who I bring in. I'd have to cut that down. But I think that would just make the quality control so much better. And I think the actors would welcome it too. I really do. I think they'd like that immediate feedback of, oh, just turn your mic on a little higher, or put the picture a different way, or this is what I need, the direction I need you to go with the read, or let's do another one and we'll tape that and send that one. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, that's what a casting director does.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Before we move on to like the physical production part of things, which I'm eager to jump into, I'd love, Anne, are you seeing any changes to deal memos because of COVID? And if so, can you explain some of those, or are they just the same?
Yes, we've seen a variety of like COVID protective type statements that you can tell someone's attorney is sort of thrown in there. Like, we're not liable if something should happen, which those don't really hold any weight. But people are spending a lot of money with an attorney trying to throw them in. We're seeing that information thrown in there. Also getting a lot of like surveys across from producers in the days leading up. So maybe we have like a health survey on 4 days out, a health survey 2 days out, another health survey the evening before the shoot, just making sure that everyone's answering the questions, that all is still well.
And I'd like to just make an addendum on that. So the casting director, I feel it's my job, that every job that I send a breakdown for, that I should have some sort of COVID statement. And at the beginning, when we started in July to really go gangbusters again, people would send me a COVID statement of how they intended to shoot, and I would send that in the original breakdown. As time has gone on, I have to really I have to constantly remind them I need a COVID statement, because I've gotten feedback that actors didn't want to participate, especially if they have young children, for whatever, they're taking care of a parent, for whatever the reason, unless they knew what it was going to be like, they were going to forego even auditioning for it. But it's harder now. Now, maybe this will change now that we have the uptick again. But I've had producers and coordinators say to me, well, we have to wait till we get closer to the shoot so we know what the dynamic is. And I'm like, I prefer, as the person generating the project, to have something to say, this is the basic outline of how we're going to conduct the shoot. And I think, Anne, you probably have seen those, and you probably wonder when they're not there, why, but later, it's been coming to me as the person who generates the project later and later.
By the way, that is such a wonderful bridge into the physical production part. Before I move there, I do want to mention, we have a webinar up on our website we invited some lawyers to come talk to us. They have some really interesting information there about signing waivers and things like that, I know I mentioned that because Anne mentioned that's popping up. So if you're curious about that, I encourage you to check that out. And as a reminder to those that are watching, as part of the Washington state safety protocols that are required, all productions must have a COVID-19 safety plan, every single one. So, so let's move into that physical production part. I'd love to start with, your perspective, Bonni and Lowell, about how have your days and schedules changed because of COVID? Like, what is different about the experience for you?
Bonni.
Okay. Yeah, definitely there's a lot more health waivers to be signed going into things. And then once on set, masks are worn. The only time that masks are taken off are during makeup and then when in front of camera. I've noticed that a lot of the things that I've done that aren't necessarily independent film, but like industrials and commercials that are official have either just been me as one person, like a spokesperson kind of role, or they've been very distanced the way they've been written. And so, but other than that, it hasn't felt that different. It's just more of wearing the mask, signing the waivers, staying socially distanced. Food service has changed, instead of having these big platters of, crafty out, they have things in wrapped packages, or they Uber Eats or whatever the service is in something individual. So that's been a little bit different as well, but.
Yeah.
And I think we're all finding our way over time, because I remember the first few jobs, you'd show up and the makeup artist would have the mask on and the plexiglass barrier, and the makeup artist would be talking to you and you'd be like, should I be talking? I don't want to seem disrespectful, but they're talking to me, but I really don't want to expel anything. And then other times you're on other sets and the makeup artist is asking you to wear your mask and you're like, okay, I'm not sure how this is going to work, but whatever. So I think we're finding a groove to where things are more uniform. And like what Bonni said, it's a bummer that there's no more craft services, that it's just, here's your box of food. But on the upside, there've been a few productions where they give you these nice little bags with the sanitizer, the wipes, and some masks to take home, and in one case even a handy dandy makeup brush. So and a few times where you go and you wear something that they want you to wear and you're about to give it back and they're like, no, we're gonna let you keep that. So you're like, cool, free clothes.
So I feel compelled. So have you seen, Lowell, a shift in the creative? Bonni, you alluded to it, that, they're writing things so that they're 6 feet apart. Like, are you seeing the same thing? How's that working?
Well, definitely for the longest time, for the first few outings, producers, directors were going with a Brady Bunch box concept to where everybody would shoot from their own home. And it was a bit of a nightmare because everybody had to have their own camera that they would send you. And then they'd send you boxes of identical things. And then you had to act like you were passing things one to another. And you had to have special software so they could talk to you and record you. And it's like, I don't have a degree in this. I can't do this. So that's been one creative way around it. But again, it's an experience. And
are they open to that? I mean, how is interacting with the client? And actually, I'd love to like open that question up to everyone, because, obviously what we've heard and what we know is that production is slowing down and it's costing more money. And, obviously creative is changing. Like our clients or, directors and producers that you're working with, are they open to this feedback? And if you have something to say, and I'll start with on set first, like if you have something that's making you uncomfortable, are they responsive to that? And do you feel like you know what to do if you feel unsafe?
Well, they have on-set coordinators for most of the jobs where I've been, so I haven't had to say anything. There's been somebody who's been barking like, 6 feet. Or they have this 6-foot dowel with the red flags on either end that they'll hold up. And so they'll remind you. So as an actor, I haven't really had to raise my guard to say, mask please, or whatever, or I'm uncomfortable, I'm gonna move over here.
I just love hearing that. What about you, Bonni? Have you had similar experiences?
Yeah, yes and no. Some sets we've had safety coordinators, others, I feel like in general, people have been respectful of whatever you project. So even if they're not in agreement with some of the restrictions or the mask requirements or other things, as long as I indicate that that's what I'm doing, then they do it as well. So there's been a couple of sets that I've been on where people are looser with the restrictions, but as long as I walk in with my mask on and indicate and keep my distance, they're respectful of that. And then it kind of creates that environment overall. So that's what I found.
And I'm just curious, Bonni, how do you bring it up?
Luckily, I really haven't had to. Usually it's just more by action, by me wearing a mask or by me keeping my distance, then people mirror that for me. And all of the people who are directly interacting, like a makeup artist or something like that, they're usually really good about the masks and the things, because I think they're a little more aware of being in closer contact. Sometimes it's the other actors or random crew people that, you kind of have to be like, no, mask on, thanks. I'll stand over here, just as a reminder. But in general, I've found that everybody's really gracious about it and trying to be aware of where other people are with what's going on.
I will just mention too that every set in Washington State needs to have a COVID-19 site supervisor, who is that person who is doing the monitoring. Even if you're, a student film, you have to have someone who is literally got those, the eyeballs on the set saying, or any place where film people are working, are we 6 feet apart? Are we following the rules? Because again, as we know, we have to keep each other safe. So, Anne and Jodi, do you have anything to add about interactions with clients? I mean, I loved hearing, Jodi, that you're asking for those COVID plans or what the safety plans are. What about how are you interacting with clients in general about this? Are you finding that they're forthcoming with safety plans and thoughtful about it? Are you sometimes putting the hammer down? What do you think?
In general, yes, they are good about, they're forthcoming about sending me something. I do nag them, my specialty, if I don't get it within a certain amount of time. And like I said, there have been some modifications now where people want to send it later because they're waiting to see what their locations are. But going back just 1 second about how creative has changed, it has. So from my point of view, about half, and I can say, pretty much half of the jobs that I've done, and I said we've been busy since July until now, they've changed the creative because they need people who are in pods together. So whereas I would be able to put a family together of actors, now I had to find a real family, or I had to find a couple. I couldn't put actors together. I had to find a couple, and they weren't actors because they fit the bill, but they needed to make sure that they were safe to film together. So I have noticed a great shift unfortunately, because actors are my world, going into the real people world.
Mm-hmm.
So that has been my experience.
Mm-hmm. And anything, are you having similar experiences?
It's interesting. It sort of changed how clients are responding to feedback. I have shared the rules. There are clients who are 100% on board, and there are clients who just want to fight me every step of the way on it. And so part of my new responsibilities have just become explaining those rules, explaining that we have actors who have comfort levels, that in order just to have the talent on set and to keep working, this is what we got to do. And then I'm in another weird, because we share the state line with Idaho, so we have people who are like, well, can I hop over to Idaho and do it? No, because the talent won't go there. So those are all interesting conversations that I'm having once an hour, at least.
Yeah.
So just explaining the rules. I'm a rules person. I like rules. They make me happy. They give us guidelines, and then everybody's on the same page. But not everybody likes to work in those black and white rules. And so just getting people on board without losing the gig has been quite a challenge.
And I think we have lost some gigs because I've been put on hold on projects, and then they end up going to a state where there are fewer restrictions. That's happened quite a bit since July.
Yeah.
You know, I'll be put on hold for something, and I guess they want to know that somebody's ready to do it. They shoot the bullet here, but then I'll find out that they did it in Atlanta, or wherever the restrictions aren't quite as strong. So there you go. That's another option that they have that we have no control over, and that's bad for Washington. But it's great because if they can't.
And letting the clients know that it's not just a union rule. I get that a lot. Well, this is going to be a non-union project.
We don't follow the rules. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, I do want to mention there's a question that came up in the chat from someone who's on camera talent is, what do you do on a set where you walk on a set, there's not a COVID-19 site supervisor? What do you guys suggest as casting director and talent? And
well, it's a union shoot, call the union. I've never heard that on a union shoot, though. The unions are pretty good. You know, their shtick was good. On non-union shoots, I would do the same. I would call you. I don't know if this is probably the wrong thing for me to say. You'll have to decide if this is a call that would come to your office. But there must be some place where people who are on set. I mean, I know that actors call their agents when there's some issue on set. You know?
I was just going to say, as talent, I would call Anne and say, Anne, what do I do?
And there have been circumstances where there's been a supervisor, but maybe they didn't explain that's what their position was. I had a talent who was really concerned. I always say, step away to the bathroom. Don't be like, I got to call my agent now. Go to the bathroom, give me a call, and was very concerned of the lack of a supervisor. And so I was able to text the producer on set really quick and be like, I know you have one. You need them to go explain what they're doing instead of just standing in the corner. So that helped a lot with the comfort level. I've had that happen on a couple shoots where whoever was the supervisor hasn't asserted themselves and explained that to the actor sort of prior to filming, which is helpful.
And like Anne and Jodi mentioned, that's the importance of the paperwork that we get beforehand, because when it lists, okay, this is who we are, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to handle the COVID situation, it's up to the actor. If it's a non-union shoot, if they don't mention they have a site COVID supervisor, then it's our choice to say, no, I think I'll pass on this one. But if they say they're going to have one and you show up and they don't have one, yeah, my first call is to my agent.
Yeah, and I think, that's where Washington FilmWorks is helpful in general, which is we, as you know the guidelines, like the back of our hand. And so we often will get phone calls and explain to different producers, or production managers what the rules are, right? Because we know them so well, because we wrote them with our community. So, so when you, where are you looking to get safety information. So you've got the safety plans that are coming in. You said, Bonni, you've got a lot of things that you're getting offline. Anne, I know that you shared just recently in your Facebook group, like a list of things that talent should be considering as they walk onto set. Are these all where are you finding the most information that you need, or anything that you can share?
That amazing list, I think, came to me from one of the casting sites. They sent it across, and so I was able to go through.
Ooh. She's dropping out. Well, we'll come back. Oh, wait, maybe she's back. We'll wait until she's back. So again, is there something that you refer to personally that you'd like to share with the community that you refer to?
Well, there's Washington State. They have something which you have on your website, I'm sure. And then I always say, to my clients when they go, well, can you send us a copy of something that, I know Content Partners has something on their website. One of the agents told me about that. And also I use SAG. The SAG rules are pretty stringent. So if we're looking for basic parameters, they're going to have it. But non-union, I don't know how the non-union producers and the union producers navigate that. But I'd say SAG standard, it should be the standard, because they just are right on it.
Got it.
I should have volume.
There you go. We got you.
When I dropped my phone, I lost volume.
Well, welcome back. We're happy to have you back. So Lowell and Bonni, what makes you feel most safe on a set?
When there's a COVID supervisor who's not afraid of saying 6 feet or put your mask on. And sometimes it's a little brusque, perhaps, but hey, they're doing it for me. They're doing it for themselves. They're doing it for the greater community. So I feel good when they are aggressive about enforcing the rules that they need to be enforcing.
Yeah, I would echo that. When there's somebody who's in charge of that, so that you don't have to personally be the bad guy. There's somebody who's making sure that the rules are being followed. Also, the paperwork that comes across ahead of time that indicates, what kind of health checks have been done. Taking temperature when you get to set. It's a small thing, but I love it when somebody walks up and shoots me in the head with those little temperature guns, because then I know everybody has at least passed that basic check.
Mm-hmm. And you're finding, as I think we talked about earlier, a consistency about that. Like you're seeing these things be implemented on a set on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So my question.
And I think there's only been, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I think there've only been a couple of jobs where my agent has told me beforehand, you have to have a COVID test before you can step on set. The only downside to that is before I shoot up to Aurora to go to the COVID testing site, sometimes they're like, we're booked out past your shoot date. So you have to work around that. But they show they care. They show it's important. So they want it to happen. We make it happen.
And they pay for it, correct? If they want you to have a COVID test, they take care of it if there's a payment involved.
They do.
About once the vaccine comes, if it will become normal for them to request paperwork that says you've been vaccinated, or require, maybe by April, that you've been vaccinated to get on the set. And that would be interesting in terms of civil liberties, but I don't want to go there. I don't want to take you there. But just a thought that may in fact become de rigueur, that you in fact have to be vaccinated to participate on a set and show paperwork for that. Has anybody talked about that? Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. Yeah. And I would imagine that the unions, who often set industry standard practices, will have an opinion about that as well, right? You hinted at something, Lowell, that I want to jump into, which is testing. So I'm hearing are you being consistently asked to test for COVID before?
I've only been asked twice, once here and once in LA. And the downside to the LA job was what should have been like a 3-day gig, I had to be there for 10 days because they wanted you there. And then they wanted you to test. And then you wait 2 days, then you test again, then you wait 2 days, then you get on set. And so you're like, okay, this is a week of my time. But again, they write the rules, we play the game.
Got it.
Compensated for that? For those days?
Yes.
No, unfortunately, it was working as a local,
Hmm.
but it was for the experience.
I was on hold for a role that was shooting down in LA, or not in LA, in New Orleans, and they were willing to pay for the room and board, not necessarily pay a salary unless I was on set, but for a month. So like 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after, which these budgets now for production must be incredible for these reasons. But it didn't work out. But yeah, they said, book out the whole month. You'd be on set for like 3 days right in the middle, but they wanted to make sure and put you up and do the testing and all the stuff. So.
Any other?
I am seeing producers offer to, when they're paying for accommodations, they're paying for the travel, and they're paying, we're making them pay rate on the days that they're holding the actor while they're testing them coming in to the project.
And so, Lowell, when you ran into that situation where you couldn't get your test results, what did you do?
Luckily, they had a cancellation. That's the thing you have to keep doing. You have to keep, or sometimes you just show up and just cross your fingers, and they'll say, okay, we'll get you in.
Got it. So any other thoughts on testing from Jodi or Anne before I move on to the next topic? I asked the actors, but I'd love to get your insight if you have anything else to share.
So
the only other thing I would mention real quick, I'm sorry, the only other thing I'd mention real quick is know when you have to have the results. Because I think a lot of times actors might be tempted like, oh, I'll handle it tomorrow, I'll handle it Wednesday. But there has to be time for you to actually get the results so that they can give you the all clear.
That's good advice. Thank you for that. Anything else?
To say that I find lately that they're not testing as much. Maybe I'm confusing. The union jobs are definitely testing. Definitely. The non-union jobs, I've seen and heard back that they are not requiring testing. So, but now things are changing again. So we'll see what the new rules will be in terms of testing. I wouldn't want to go.
I'm not testing for non-union projects.
Yeah, that's a problem.
You're not seeing testing for non-union projects is what I heard. Is that right?
No, I'm only seeing it on union projects.
Right. For those producers that might be listening, we've gotten a couple recommendations of testing groups that can help. So if you're doing a longer term production and you need consistent testing, there's a couple of recommendations that have come from the industry of places that have been helpful to film. So we believe testing is good if you can afford it and that kind of thing. Like we believe in testing. So if you can, please do. Scenes with other actors. This is another topic of conversation that I would love to hit up, which is, we know the rules, but like, what is it like acting 6 feet apart? And, with this new kind of creative happening, how is it to be an actor on set these days in that regard?
I think it's tricky, especially if you have to have a scene with some intimacy. You can't necessarily be 6 feet away and mildly menacing or intensely menacing without shouting. So in those situations, it's nice when there are precautions where they say, okay, you have to have a test. I did do a job. This was in Portland, actually, and it was a non-union job where what they said that they were willing to do, or what they were going to do, was all the production people were going to be wearing masks and they were going to be 6 feet apart, but the actors would have to be in close confines. Luckily, I knew the other actors, so it was a situation where we could say, I'm going to get tested. How about you? I don't want to put you at risk. And so we all did. So there was comfort there. But there was a sense of, gee, if I didn't know these people and if I didn't know they had been tested, would I be here? And what would this be like? And what could the result be?
Got it. Bonni, anything to add?
No, just similar experiences. Most of the projects that I've worked on where I've been in close proximity with other actors, it was with people I knew and could text or call way ahead of time, and talk to them about what we as actors and how we were going to stage things and directions and things like that. So I don't know how that would be on a more professional or non or union gig. So.
Got it. We had a couple of questions. Sorry for looking off screen. A couple questions from the folks who are listening. One is around rehearsals and how are rehearsals being handled in this environment? Are they done virtually? Are you doing them in person? Are you doing rehearsals?
I've had a lot of Zoom readings, table reads. A lot of stuff done on Zoom now.
We're seeing a lot of.
You're seeing a
Zoom
lot of
rehearsals.
Got it. Got it. I mean, how is that for you as an actor?
It is what it is. I mean, I feel like we've been on Zoom since what, February or March now. And so in a way, it's kind of the new normal. And it's just, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's harder obviously for things like blocking, a lot of that kind of stuff just happens on the fly on set. But as far as direction and emotions and all of those other kinds of things, those can be taken care of virtually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anything else to add on that topic for you, Anne or Jodi? Rehearsals?
I've seen that they have some, but I was told they were all Zoom.
What would the world do?
I'm seeing them I'm seeing them via Zoom, and just production again having the expense in their budget to make sure that the actors are compensated for that time, that it's not just the time that you're on camera for Zoom, it's the preparation that it takes, to even get your family into other rooms and quiet so that you can do the work that needs to be done.
Got it. Another question that popped up, which I actually don't know the answer to, which is stunt actors. How is the 6-foot rule managed? As a screenwriter would look at a fight scene, what are the guidelines? I mean, I can speak to the Washington state guidelines, but has anyone been on a set with a stunt performer?
I haven't.
Yeah. Jodi, anything come across your desk?
That generally, so I'm not aware.
Right. So my response would be referring back to the Washington state guidelines, which means that stunt performers would need to be 6 feet apart unless there's plexiglass in between you. Or, you can be closer than 6 feet, but everyone else needs to be masked except for the actor, the one that is speaking, although the stunt actor may not be speaking. So we're happy to look into that if you want more. I don't know who answered or asked the question, but we're happy to, see if we can find more information if you want to email us at info@washingtonfilmworks.org. So with that, we're getting to the end of our hour, but I always love to, kind of round out this conversation by asking, what is something that you would like the clients, producers, directors to be aware of, or for them to know from your perspective as an actor, a casting director, a talent agent?
For me, it's just protect the actors. I mean, I work for the production person, that company. That's really who employs me. But this is my world and my community. And I want actors to never have to be concerned about there not being a total safe set available. So I do have that conversation with my clients. I'm very careful to talk to them about it. And I think like I said, several have asked me, can you send me an example? And that just means they haven't been shooting in Washington. That they're not really up on exactly what might be different here. But I think I'm actually pretty pleased with the way the clients have handled things from my end.
That's very nice to hear.
And I would just say that, as an actor, we die to get on set, but we don't want to die as a result of being on set. So my only thing is I would love for the producers, directors to not be shy about sharing their plan. And we love it when there's as much detail as possible, especially when we show up in our cute little cloth masks and they're like, nope, it's got to be medical grade. You have to wear this mask, blah, 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 because it shows that they're invested in their safety and our safety. Because as actors, I believe if we're serious and if we want to get through this, we will read and we will understand. We just want to be on the same page.
Nice.
Yeah, be transparent. You know, if there's any sort of weird, like, seems like you're going around things, or, you know, it's just nicer if everybody is transparent about what the protocols are and how things need to proceed. And I'll pass it to Anne, but be as gracious as possible. This year has been tough on everybody from all sides, producers, actors, directors, whatever your job is. It's been weird. And so being full of grace is great.
And Bonni, I think you'll agree that nothing kills the vibe faster than when you're on set and you see a bunch of mask wearing, but the mask is beneath the nose.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't want to be here.
Yep.
Not effective, right? Not effective at all.
And just know that really the reason that we are enforcing these rules, it's not my job to enforce the rules. It's my job to inform you of the rules, to present the opportunity to the talent. And the real reason behind all of this is because we want to work. And as long as we keep that perspective of we want to work, we want to show that we can work safely so that we can remain open and making livings for our family. And we have to keep that in mind, is that the bigger picture of being able still to provide and make a living in what we do and what our skill set is really the end game, that we're all on the same page. So if you don't like a rule that I'm just telling you what it is, you have to remember that we are still all on the same team on this.
Well, and it's a nice moment to just say that as we see, you know, some very significant spikes in the virus in Washington State right now, that this is one of those times to wear those masks and to make sure that you're, you know, helping to protect our community and the community in which you live. So with that, thank you guys so much. I learned a lot, which is always a benefit too. I love learning as I go. We're all learning in this situation. And for those of you who are not aware, I would love to just encourage you to attend our Snow Place Like Home event, which is scheduled for Thursday, December 17th at 7 p.m. There will be a trivia game with Washington State film trivia with prizes. There will be mocktails and cocktails. And if you RSVP, that we have an email going out on Monday. If you RSVP in advance, you'll get our virtual swag bag. So it's really, you know, we're going to talk about, you know, the industry in general, but we're really going to be looking forward to 2021 and talking about how FilmWorks is intending and will support you moving into the next phase of the pandemic and beyond. So thank you guys so much for joining us today and sharing all that you had to share. And we will see you on set, is what I'll say.
Happy holidays.
Thanks, Amy.
Happy holidays. Thank you, everyone.
Holidays.